WCLN 1170 Radio and Star Communications Channel 16 proudly present the We Should Know Show, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative. Now, here's your host, J.W. Simmons, as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. J.W. Simmons here. The name of the show is We Should Know. Pleased to be your host today. We're talking with someone that's going to bring attention to an area in county government, particularly at the Department of Social Services, that you're going to want to know about. And the person is Patty Santos. Patty, you are now the director of the Sampson County Department of Social Services. Congratulations on your position.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for being with us. You've been on the show before, and you've covered a number of departments in social services, everything from child welfare to child abuse. You've been there. You've literally walked that path and understand a lot of the granular operations. And now you've been through it to the point that you've worked on the state level as well.
Yes.
With other DSS agents. But you're now in that somewhat unique position that somebody said one time, this is an old quote, the buck stops here.
Yes.
So kind of talk to us about how you got where you are, what really intrigued you about social services and has kept you on track with that for all these years.
Okay, so I ended up at social services kind of like by mistake. I was never intending to go into the social work field. I was more law enforcement. That was my strong suit. But when I moved to North Carolina, I needed a job. So I got a job interpreting. You know, I could speak Spanish, still do. So that was a job. I was interpreting mostly for CPS and foster care, a little bit of child support. And we would go into homes. And of course, I would have to interpret interviews, safety plans, and it just opened me up to a whole different world. I didn't know this stuff existed. So seeing that and seeing the differences that these social workers were making in families' lives, I thought, this is what I need to do. So I waited for 2 years for a position to open up as a social worker, and it did. And when it opened up, I applied and I got it, and I did that for 5 years. And that's probably where I think I learned the most. You're in homes, you're dealing one-on-one, face-to-face with problems, with crisis, with other professionals. So I really enjoyed that time as a social worker. After 5 years, I then moved into the supervisor position. I was able to teach other social workers and supervise their caseload. So that was also a good time.
It's interesting. Now you transitioned in from like a criminal justice background. Tell us kind of what you did in that area.
Well, I only studied it. So in college, I really, I interned at a probation and parole office, and I thought that's where I wanted to be. But doing investigations in child protective services kind of filled that niche, because you're still collecting facts, but you're doing it on a personal level. And the decisions that you're making are having a grand impact on families.
And what interested me with that, with your background, is that you were able to see, looking at it from that side, what happens if we don't get the social service side right. The ultimate result is going to be the criminal justice community.
Absolutely.
Of some way or the other. And that's the sad reality, I think, of what we're dealing with.
That's very true.
The other thing that impressed me with your background is that you have a good understanding now of the people that you have oversight.
Yes, we work together in the field. The families that we're working with are the same social problems, the same characteristics. You know, I'm not too far removed that I don't recall what it's like being in the field and asking families to come up with safety plans or asking them to do things. You know, I'd never want to ask somebody to do something that I don't feel comfortable doing, either in my family situation or at work.
One of the things that struck me, and I told you I was going to bring these words back to you, a quote from you, and I think each one of these words has significant meaning, but I wanted to just kind of touch on that and let you speak to it. And you talk about integrity, dedication, transparency, accountability, and these are some of the core values you talk about. and you use the word that helps guide you. Not only are these admirable things, but I think what we're talking about now and the population, general population, and listening to us, the idea of transparency is something that they're demanding.
Mm-hmm. And they have the right to do that, and we should be transparent as much as we can while we're not breaking confidentiality rules. But, being able to explain why you had to make a certain decision, the factors that you took into consideration, also being able to say, we weren't able to do this, but this is what we can do. So being able to meet people halfway and explain your thought process. It's not, you don't make decisions in a vacuum. So you should be able to explain your decisions. Value them, the person, and what they're asking, but also being able to explain how you got there.
When I look at social services and the dynamic of that, and of course we're sitting here and having this conversation at the beginning of 2025. Of course, the commissioners as governance body will be meeting, I'm sure, in the next few months, looking at not only the budget, but what's left in the budget, also looking at next year's budget. What concerns you more to ensure that you have the kind of structure and things that you need to make happen for the people of this county? When you look at 2025, what are those things that you would say, this is a key challenge, this is something that I'm going to have to overcome? What are those things from a personal level?
I would say staffing, obviously, at social services. The services we provide are mandated. So we don't have the opportunity to say, or the option to say, well, we just can't do that right now because we're short-staffed, or we don't have the staff to do it. We can't say that. Therefore, the services have to be provided, and you need people to be able to provide those services. If we don't have the people, then the people that are left are the ones that have to do it. So they get overworked, overstressed. We don't have the option to scale down. We have got to provide the mandated services. I'm very hopeful that the commissioners are open-minded, and I've met with them, and I think they are, just to hear what we have to do and how we intend to get it done. Again, by presenting the just like you had mentioned earlier, the problem and the solution.
The big issues that you talk about are like those must issues, like, for example, with child care or for any of the other kinds of things you do. How much is the financial piece of that critical for you to have to be able to maintain qualified people? Is that going to be a problem going forward? I mean, are you going to be able to if a raise is necessary, or if a position comes open, the next person coming in might decide, well, I'm just not going to work for that amount of money.
Mm-hmm. And, the salary then are set by the county, and we just did a pay study. It works until it doesn't work. If you stop giving COLAs, if you stop doing raises, we're back down to the bottom of the pay scale, and the staff are leaving to go to work at nearby counties, neighboring counties, for a higher amount. So I think it's important to stay on top of that pay scale with the COLAs and remaining competitive, because that's the only way that you're going to keep people in Sampson County. Because
you're really competing not only with just the immediate counties around you, but even on the state level. I mean, let's face it, you stepped into the world of state level funding out of local. Now you're back into local, but there are opportunities that's probably going to open up on the state level, and you could lose some of your key employees.
Absolutely. That's a valid fear. We put a lot of resources in our employees. We teach them well. We open them up to experiences. So they're qualified to go to the next level, like the state level. And that's an option, an opportunity they have. And also you're competing with telework, work from home options. So we at Social Services try to be as flexible as we can with those perks.
The idea of social services and the Department of Social Services, and all of our counties have a Department of Social Services, as I understand. But in rural areas, it kind of brings on a new significance, does it not, in the sense that the location that people live in a county that is touted by many as the largest county, but actually some folks would say, well, no, it's the second largest. Either way, there's a lot of rural landscape. What does that do for you as operation of social services versus somewhere like Raleigh or Mecklenburg County, where you got density of population? Give us an idea of what you face that some of these other places may not face.
Well, I think when it comes to the workload and the task and the time it takes to complete a task, if a social worker has to drive to Ivanhoe to do a home visit every week, that is going to take longer to do than somebody in Raleigh who is driving a couple miles up the road to an apartment complex to do the home visit. And also then you might have one home in Ivanhoe and then you've got to go to Dunn. And that you could be on the road all day long and only maybe see 2 families, 3 families max. So the time it takes to complete a task is going to be different depending on your size.
So travel time and that person being able to get there and come back also equals to a reduction of your overall budget and the sustainability. Are we seeing an increase in the need and demand in this county? In your experience so far with social services here in this county, has those demands and needs, are they going up?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The state has made it where, as policy changes, we have to get involved with more and more different, we're involved with more families due to different things because of policy changes. And the requirements are adding on. They just keep adding on the requirements, so that's more time. One case is not today what it used to be before. One case has got more requirements. Then you've got to deal with the travel, but also the caseload. The state did a caseload study not long ago, and they have reduced the number of cases that a social worker should be able to handle. And we are above that. But we can't say, well, we can't take any more cases. We just got to do the best with what we have.
We're going to kind of dig into some of these issues when we come back from this break, but I really want to get into some of the areas that you have oversight. Some of them you've worked in. I want to talk about some of those and kind of get your perspective from the angle you see it now from the position you're in. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned. We're talking with the new director of the Sampson County Department of Social Services, and we'll be back. Stay tuned.
Computer viruses, malware, and ransomware are out there. They're dangerous, and they can steal your identity and damage your equipment. Star Communications is now offering Protect IQ. The service adds an extra layer of protection to every device connected to your network, working quietly in the background. Star can help you protect yourself from the inside out with Protect IQ. Call Star today and take advantage of this free service when you sign up for whole home Wi-Fi with Star Communications.
How can your friend save you money? It's easy. Refer a relative, coworker, neighbor, or friend to Star Communications. Friend signs up for high-speed internet service. Friend's new account is confirmed. Friend gives your name to our service representative as the one who referred them to Star. You receive a $30 internet credit. It's just that simple. And even better, receive a $30 internet credit for every referral that results in a new confirmed account. High-speed internet from Star Communications. Refer a friend today.
Welcome to Cork and Brew Roseboro, where you can enjoy your favorite coffee, fraps, smoothies, bakery items, sandwiches, and select beer and wines while reconnecting with friends and family. Sit down and enjoy the experience. Come on by and give us a try.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. My name is J.W. Simmons, your host. We're talking about social services today and the new director of social services, Miss Patty Santos. Patty, you've been there, you've done that. Prior to break, we talked a bit about your background and expertise. When we look at social services from the perspective that you're in, I'm trying to now get folks to see and understand not only what you face, but the dynamic of the operation of social services and something you alluded to, the mandates. We're talking 100 plus employees. And a lot of stuff that we're talking about today, if folks want to go to the website, they can go to the website and pull this up if they want to fact check or whatever. But the reality is a lot of departments that are in that particular area are not only critical, but if we could pull the curtain back so folks could look through your eyes and see what you see, a lot of it is very heartbreaking kinds of things. And I go to the whole area of child abuse and neglect and fraud and those kinds of things. That particular area, I've had folks that you've worked with, that you now supervise on this show, and I do it because I feel compelled to let folks know that we pay attention a lot of times, and I'm a pet lover, you are, we all have pets, but at the end of the day, we cannot allow ourselves to take our eyes off our children and all we see is our pets. So let's start with, if you don't mind, let's start with this whole child abuse area that you have oversight, that you've been involved with, and everything from how to report it to understanding what it is.
Yes. So child abuse has got a special place in my heart. That's where I've done the majority of my work. So if you see something, report it. Definitely call our office. If it's on the weekends or after hours, you can call the non-emergency number and report that. But also I would like to say this, don't get held back on, well, they might not look into this. Just report it. Or they might screen this out. Just go ahead and report it and let us make that decision on what needs to be looked into or not, as we've got to follow the guidelines on what we can screen in and what we have to screen out. But yes, the cases are on the rise. As always, we're seeing a lot of abuse cases. And I don't know, I think that is because people are reporting it. Do I think it's happening more? I think it's happening about the same. I just think it's being reported more, which is great. We need people to report these things so that we can look into them and have the work with the families to make the changes that they need to make. Going back to your pet comment, I think we love our pets definitely, but let's look at the children. Where can we meet our child, meet them where they are? What resources can we provide the children? You as a parent, look at your child and, we all want what's best for them. So what resources do we have in this county that we can assist with? And do that before it's too late. Because at some point, the resources are not going to work. So reach out to get those services while the services can still make a difference with the child.
It's important. It seems to me it's important that not only you know about it, but if, as you just pointed out, which I'm so glad you did, is this idea, if you see something out there and you're not sure, go ahead, because if you already have a running file on that particular situation or that particular person, it doesn't hurt because it might validate something you already have.
Absolutely.
And that's critical. Do you see a lot of this kind of repetition thing? If you go out to one case and all of a sudden here it's surfaced again, and does that happen?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, that happens a lot. And just like you said, you might report what you saw, but there might be somebody else who saw something a little bit different or saw more than what you saw. So now we have these two reports that we can put together to say, oh, this is something's happening here and we need to go out there.
You've got an area that's labeled as adult, child and family services. So when we talk about the child, is it a collective of events that you face as you and your folks that work in that department? Is it a collective of events you see when you see the child abuse situation? Is that a whole chain of things that's happening in that environment that's the causing factors? I mean, the child just is either neglected. We get that. They're not getting either nurturing or whatever they need.
There's always
help us understand what you see.
There's always contributing factors. Nobody sets out to want to abuse or neglect, usually. So, you have parents dealing with mental health, that their own issues, therefore they're not able to identify the issues with their child, or they're dealing with substance abuse, poverty, maybe leaving children home alone because, well, I've got to work and I can't afford a daycare or a babysitter, so I have to leave the child home alone. So all of these factors come into play to create the perfect storm.
The thing that we're hearing a lot, and which is somewhat, some people would say, I can't believe you're fixing to bring this up. It's a controversial issue. Is this idea of childbirth and pregnancy and this kinds of things? Are we missing somewhere at the beginning for folks to understand that bringing a child into this world is not only a miracle, and I use the word on this show often, and that's by the grace of God. Here's the creation of a human being. I get that. But is there enough emphasis now and education for folks to understand this is a process that once that happens, and as I can witness as a grandparent and as a parent, it changes your life forever. Literally forever. You can't continue to do the things you did before if you have a child, is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense, or am I off track?
The education, I do think that the education is more than what it used to be. But with, I don't want to say the generation, it's almost like they don't know, or I hear you, but I don't really get it until I'm in the situation. We do have a program called Triple P Parenting, which aims to help parents parent a unique age of children. But no, I think there could always be more education with that.
The idea that when we look at the family, do you see families, do you get calls where you go and you discover that the grandparents are actually looking after the grandchildren? And I'm not talking about just picking them up at school. That's a whole different thing. I'm talking about where that has become their only fortress of a family. Absolutely.
We see that often. And then you have a grandparent who is not able to handle. Usually it works out fine when they're little. And when they start getting into the teenage years, all of a sudden the grandparent can't do it because the child is not listening, and just general things, not cleaning up behind themselves, disrespectful. And the grandparent is saying, I can't do this anymore. So we have seen an influx of teenagers being brought into the agency, sometimes by their parents and then sometimes by a different caregiver that they're dependent. They just are not able to provide care anymore. So I was just actually looking at a report the other day where we have several 17-year-olds about to age out of care. So our numbers are this teenage group.
I can only imagine somebody being, how should I say, nurtured and raised in that kind of environment. And especially when we're thinking of grandparents, people in their 60s, 70s, or even 80s attempting to, I'll even look back at my experience. I can only imagine trying with boys to bring them up in an environment. But the older you get, you're just not prepared. And the relatability of that becomes a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that brings us back again to that core subject of somewhat controversial of birth control and those kinds of things. How do you approach that from a social services structure? Is that something you just are frank with folks? Is there education, adequate education in our public schools? Where do we go with that?
I don't know about the education in the public schools, but if that is an issue that is going on in one of the homes or families that we're assessing, we provide education on it. Of course, with the parent's consent, or just to the parent, because they would have to consent, I think. So we do provide that educational resource, but of course, that's not something that we can mandate.
When we're talking about this, it's almost like it's a bit, superficial or 1,000-foot level here. But the reality is, if someone's listening to this show today, or they're watching it on Channel 16 TV, and they're thinking, well, I've got to do something. Maybe it's a grandparent, maybe it's a young mother that's, the father's gone, and they got to have some help. Do you encourage them to call you or call your office and say, this is so-and-so, and I just, before it gets to the point that neglect hits?
Happens, yes. Call the office. We have a resource center at our office called The Hub, where we house food banks, diaper banks, information on mental health, substance abuse, treatment. We house all the resources that we know about. So if you call, explain your situation, we have a staff member there that can access what resources will be best for you and provide you that information.
And all of that can start with just that generation of phone call, and it's not something that if they call, they're not going to be judged, blamed, or shamed. They're going to receive the key word there, that 4-letter word of help.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And experts or people with the skill set to do that are standing by. Is it a 24-hour number?
No, not our number. 8 to 5, but we always have somebody available in the hub, and you can also walk in. So it's a place inside the lobby.
I want to continue on this same train here as we come back from our next break. And then once we kind of exhaust this, I got a number of other questions, but this is so important. I just want to spend more time on understanding where we are with children, and maybe some of the restraints folks feel like they're under. They found themselves in this situation. So I'd like to kind of touch on that a bit more when we come back from break.
Okay.
So ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're going to come back from break as we talk about this. If you know somebody out there that maybe is not watching the show today or listening to us on WCLN radio, give them a call, tell them to tune in. This is critically important information that might help and save somebody from being abused. We'll be back in a moment.
At Fisher's, it's not just about fashion. It's about exceptional service. Experience top-notch customer care and find your perfect look. Visit Fisher's today and feel the difference.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
The average American household has 17 devices connected to the internet. With more and more devices able to get online, you may need to increase your internet speed. Call Star Communications today and let us help you select the package that's right for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on the air. J.W. Simmons, your host, talking with Patty Santos, the new director of Department of Social Services. Patty, thank you for being with us. We get caught up into a subject I can tell you have a real passion for, and of course it touches all of our hearts, and that is in the whole area of child protective services and what that means. When I look at that title, it says, I think to me, hopefully prevention. That what we're saying today maybe will prevent a child from needing protective services. But to your point, that's on the increase, maybe due to reporting or what have you. Picking that up from there, you mentioned something on break, and I'm going to start this segment with that. You said you hope folks would open their hearts and homes. Yes. Explain.
So that is for foster homes. To become licensed to be a foster parent. Okay. So we can all kind of talk the talk and get the warm, fuzzy feeling when you talk about children going into good foster homes, but you got to take action. You got to do the next thing. So I would encourage people and challenge people to not only open their heart to the issue, but also their home. We have a process at Social Services where you can take the class and get licensed, and then hopefully be able to accept foster children in your home. Now, this is, of course, there's differences in it. So you can do like respite, where you might just take a child for a night or two, and you know, that's the purpose. Those are always needed. We are at the brink of having children at our agency 2 to 3 times a week. So placements are few and far between. So staff are spinning wheels and a lot of their time on locating placements for children. So the more homes we have, the more places we have to place these children, and the better the opportunity that they have to reach permanency.
Do we have adequate foster homes in this area now?
Not as many as we need, no.
So, and I've read this, that there are social services departments that actually house children overnight in the office. Is that something that's hyperbole, or is that a true kind of thing?
That is true, and we have done that here in Sampson.
Because you have nowhere to put them. You can't send them to the hospital.
No.
There's no home there. What's the challenge? Why do you think folks maybe that have that ability, that care as passionate maybe as we do about this, that are willing to do it, but yet they hesitate? Why do you think causes them to hesitate?
Maybe the stigma or the unknown. You know, I'm not sure what I would do with a child. What if they, you know, have issues? But that's what the training is for, you know, to go through these scenarios, to train the foster parent to be able to handle the situations that a child may bring into their home.
Wow. And the other thing that struck me too is, and a lot of folks may not know this, but there's something now called the DSS Resources Committee, which was adopted in April 2018. The Sampson County Board of Commissioners assumed direct control of Sampson County Board of Social Services, unauthorized under North Carolina statute. The commissioners be elected to appoint resource committee for the Sampson County Department of Social Services. And it's a 5-member board. Tell us what all that means after you read the jargon. Make it simple for everybody so they can understand.
So our resource committee is kind of what is left of our board. The members there are from the community. We meet quarterly. We go over a report of just kind of how we're doing, what's going on at DSS. The goal for those members is to be able to kind of be spokesperson, people out in the community to say, you know, these are the services that social services has, and have you thought about this service? So as they're engaging with the community, to highlight the areas that potentially we could help with.
So it's not only a resource board, but it's also folks that are willing to kind of raise their hand and say, listen, I'm here and I've got this connection with social services and support what you guys are doing.
Yes. And also it's a two-way street. So as they're in the community, they're seeing what's happening and they're reporting back to us, you know, like the homelessness, or have y'all looked into this? I foresee this issue coming up. So it's a two-way street.
You just mentioned something, and I'm fixing to go there. So it's just perfect timing. It's just like we practiced this, but folks, we didn't really. This is the first time that you mentioned something called homelessness, and we've addressed that. I've had some folks on and we talk about it, and some folks say, well, we really don't have a homeless problem. Other folks say, not only do we have a homeless problem, it's apparent and it's real. Where are we with homelessness? Why is homelessness occurring? Why am I hearing from folks all kinds? And some of this, is unprovable at the moment, but folks will say, well, I've actually seen where people are bringing folks in on a bus and putting them out so they get them out of the larger cities, particularly up north and that kind of thing. Is that even...
I have not heard of that, and I've not.
Yeah,
seen that.
It's like things like that start, and I like to say validation. Nah, I don't know if that's true, but we do have a homeless problem.
Do we have homeless people in Sampson County? Yes, I do think so. I've seen those. Our resources are very limited here, so a lot of times those individuals are seeking to get to bigger cities where there's more resources. So I think that it's it kind of ebb and flows.
Well, one of the things that strikes me too is in the area that we kind of alluded to off camera and talked about a bit, is that how connected and how important is it for churches and faith-based organizations to step up and support the agenda of DSS and help with everything from understanding everything from foster care to identifying child issues to helping in areas that maybe you don't have funding in, looking at our own environment. I mean, we look at the globe and we see all kinds of things all over the world, horrific, hunger situations, horrific situations all over the world. But in our local areas throughout the state of North Carolina, I'm being told there's people that need help as well. And oftentimes the resources is not there. How important is the faith-based organizations to what you do?
It's critical. Faith-based organizations touch a lot of people's lives and are able to communicate a message to kind of push people to volunteer and do a little bit more to help those less fortunate. I here in Sampson County know of a lot of churches that are doing a lot of great things, and some have connected with us and assist us with our Christmas cheer organization and other events throughout the year. So I would like to encourage them to continue doing the great job that they are.
Which brings us to that area, and as far as what your feeling is, whether it's abused or not abused, it falls under your I guess administrative area, and that's the whole area of food and nutrition, food stamps, the SNAP program, all of these kinds of things. And oftentimes folks will say to me, and you've probably heard this too, well, I saw so-and-so go through the grocery store and they had all this other stuff, and it was, they don't, you know, that doesn't bother me as long as people are not going hungry. What do you think about that program? Does it need tweaking? Is there areas you need more flexibility in? Is the funding resource for that program sustainable? Your thoughts?
I think that the program is needed, and of course they have guidelines and eligibility criteria, and that would be up to the federal government and the state to change that if needed. But I have seen where a lot of times those benefits are what's keeping food on the table. Like I've been in homes where people are, where the fridge looks one way one day, and I'm told, you know, my benefits are arriving next week or in 2 days, and that's when I plan to grocery shop. And 3 days later, their fridge is full of food. So I do think that those benefits make a difference. Are you going to have a couple rotten eggs that take advantage? Of course, but that's not where we choose to focus, because that program benefits several families in our county, and I think it's needed.
And the dynamic of that program also then gets back to how does the community support that program. We've recently had some folks with the Christian Food Bank in Salemburg on, and those folks are doing a tremendous job on a weekly or however often they get together, but I mean, just literally giving food out to the community over there. And oftentimes I'm told folks line up for that food. What would you want to say to people if they're in need of food, just literally basic nutrition? And this goes for homeless folks as well. What do you want to say to them? And just for people to be sure, this program is designed for folks that have no other choice. So, I mean, if you have a meal at home, if you have a refrigerator with food in it, it probably would be best for you to utilize that rather than stepping into this program.
Yes, I think the food banks are very important. So obviously, if you find yourself in need of food, call our office, connect with the hub. We will connect you with the food bank organizations. But also, if it's a constant struggle, apply for benefits. You know, you either meet the criteria or you won't, and we'll go from there.
But there's an application process.
Absolutely.
You just said apply for the benefits. You got to actually reach out to your office, and there's folks there that can, if they can come in, they'll help them fill out the paperwork. Is there something they can do online as well?
Yes, they can apply online as well.
So if they do it online, they don't necessarily have to go into the office?
They shouldn't, as long as they're able to turn in all their paperwork and what's required to determine eligibility.
That whole area of credibility, I think, is part of the importance of that, is being able to validate certain things. We're in a world now that fraud is everywhere,
Yes.
but the validation of it is something your office takes seriously as well.
Of course.
Nobody, and I'm going to make this statement, and you can tell me if this is can be true or not. Nobody should go hungry in your service area.
They should not go hungry.
Because the resources are there.
Because the resources are there.
We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. I got two other areas I want to touch on that I think is critically important. If nothing else, just for us to talk about and folks kind of understand that you're aware of it. And that's the area of adults needing assistance through social services, that aging process. The other area is our Latino community and how important it is for us to understand and know what to do with that. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned.
You're out for an evening on the town. Finally a chance to relax and forget that you left your front door completely unlocked. Fortunately, you just installed a security system from Star Communications. With just your cell phone, you can check on your house, lock it down, light it up, and get back to relaxing.
He forgot to put Buster in his crate.
Unfortunately, we can't help with that. Security and automation from Star Communications. Call today to find out more.
Providing fewer commutes, more backyard offices, and crystal clear meetings. Providing less, you froze up, and more presence in your presentations. Providing a better internet experience. Providing possible.
At the Reedy Mark, we take pride in a unique, distinguished customer experience. We specialize in handcrafted cocktails, allocated bourbons, as well as gourmet signature food items exclusive to our menu at the Reedy Mark in Roseboro.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I want to thank you for being with us today. The name of the show is We Should Know. We come to you each and every week on WCLN Radio, Star Communications TV, Channel 16. Both mediums and platforms are used. You can find us on the TV channel at 2:30 on Tuesdays each and every week. Also, there's a replay of this show at 7 p.m. on Channel 16, Star Communications TV, as well as uploaded to YouTube and other social media platforms. Please take a look at it. I always enjoy your input, your comments about shows, things I should have asked that I didn't ask, or maybe people that I should even have on the show. I often hear that from you. You can reach us at our email address, which is weshouldknow@gmail.com. Again, that's weshouldknow@gmail.com. Or if you want to just drop us a card or a note, you can send it to Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina. I hope you enjoyed the show today. We've got one more segment. We're talking about things that impact your life on a daily basis, and we're talking with Patty Santos. Patty, thank you for being with us. It goes so fast when we get in such strategic areas that you cover with social services. I want to touch on the adult population now to kind of get a feel for those senior citizens that maybe need assistance and areas that people are in now. I know we have a lot of folks and a lot of our church people, should I say, we do what we can to help them in their situation, but sometimes social services needs to step in. That's an area that is listed. Folks can go to your website and see that. Tell us how you help the senior population, and a lot of folks are familiar with the nutrition sites throughout the county. But there's also another side of that. They got to go. A lot of them still live alone at home. Yeah. Some of them need to be where they have daily assistance, but are not quite there yet. Just give us a heads up on what's going on in that area.
So Sampson County is aging. North Carolina is aging. So the number of aging, the population is going up. That in turn means that our referrals for the aging have gone up. We can go out there to see if adults are self-neglecting, not taking medicine like they should, or just, self-neglecting in areas. Also, if they're being exploited by others, we look at that. And also if they're incompetent. So we will assess for that and then take steps to remedy that situation. So those are all areas that fall under our adult services.
How do you become aware if there's, we talked about a while ago that it appears that folks are calling in more as it relates to child abuse and neglect. Or do you think folks are calling more and saying, there's this senior citizen or a couple that's living in so-and-so location, and I think they might need some assistance? Do you guys actually go out and investigate those kinds of things?
Yes, we do.
And I'll be honest with you, I've heard people say they've called you before and it wasn't long before somebody was out there talking to them.
Yeah. So our response time is the same, is similar to that of children. So we go out there to see if they need immediate assistance, and if they're able to still care for themselves, we offer them resources and can work with them voluntarily if they're willing, and connect them with resources.
That particular area, again, is in similarities is reporting, is back to what we were talking about with child abuse and neglect. If you're not sure, what I heard you say was call and let us talk to you. And if somebody says, well, I don't want to get involved in anybody else's business, can they do that confidentially without the social worker saying, well, Frank down the road called me about you or what have you? Is that, kind of make sure they understand?
The reporter's information is always confidential. Always confidential. So that will not be shared. It cannot be shared. It will not be shared. We encourage you as a reporter to give us your information so that if we have to call you back, we can do that. But now if you do not give us that information, we are still required to take your concerns.
Do you guys interact like with law enforcement? Because I know they're often getting something called welfare checks. The 911 or what have you seems to be a problem at so-and-so, or somebody said they rang the doorbell and for the past 2 days and nobody came to the door, or
yes, we
whatever.
work very closely.
Do you network with them?
Very closely. A lot of our reports come from law enforcement. They're on the scene and this is what they're seeing. They'll report that immediately. No concerns there. They're always very helpful.
I want to take a little time, and I've got just so much. I'd love to have another hour to talk to you, but I want to transition to something I think has been, continues to be, and I expect to see it only grow. And that's something a lot about. I mean, and that's the Latino population in this county, particularly that population that is here. And the reason they're here is to work. And from my communication through a lot of folks is they're diligent workers in the farming community. They're sending that money back to their home in Mexico, wherever they're coming from, but they are legitimately here. And I want to make clear that from what I'm hearing from the ag community, this is a vital part of the sustainability of agriculture. Talk to us about that, because you have a unique seat in understanding that, because you see not only those workers, but those folks like yourself that communicate in Spanish. You've got a heritage in that area. Help us understand what the people out there need to know about this community, because there's a lot of talk about it, but I don't hear a lot of people stepping in and saying, look, we got to have these folks to help us.
Yes, I think that these are good people. They're here. They're doing honest work, hard work, and I think that we should show grace to that. They may not do things exactly how we would, and again, they're different, right? That's, I think, where the concern comes in. They're just different, but different doesn't mean bad. So I think we just need to show grace and be nice. Be nice and be caring. Value them. Communicate that with them and with others. Share your opinion with others, which I think we're doing here, which is great. So yes, obviously the work needs to be done, and this is how it's getting done. So why would we not embrace that?
And I think you just hit a couple of key words there. Different in the sense that oftentimes there's that communication barrier. At the same time, the value aspect of it is that, I mean, and I've talked with people a lot, as you do, and I'm constantly hearing folks, I've got this particular job I'd like to get done. And then I've talked to everybody from people that does landscaping right on around. They say, I'd love to find 2 or 3 people. The problem often though, Patty, is that folks are uncomfortable because they can't communicate verbally with folks. How easy is it for folks to learn basic communication skills to be able to communicate just basic communication with our Latino?
Well, I think in today's day and age, with everything you can get on the phone, there's apps where you can take courses to help you with that. I want to say there's also courses at the community college, so there's definitely resources. But I also want to say that while we're talking about a specific group of people that don't speak English, there is also a big group of Hispanics that do speak English. So while you may assume that there's a language barrier, there may not be.
And I think sometimes you make that assumption simply because if you're in a grocery store, they may be talking on the phone and they're speaking Spanish. Well, you just assume they have no idea what you're saying. But wrong is what you're told. Don't make that assumption because likely it may be a wrong assumption.
Yes.
I particularly like the fact that what you said is that different does not mean bad.
Absolutely.
What do you think? Having some background, obviously, with the Latino community, what do you think those folks would want to say today if they were sitting right there? We had a whole group. What do you think they would want to say to everybody out there listening and watching? One, two, or three critical pieces.
They are people, human, just like us. So while we have our differences, we're all still human. We're the same in that aspect. I think we focus on differences to divide us, but they don't have to divide us.
Well, I don't think they do. I think what happens is that, and again, depending on what you look at or what you read, the piece of where something is happening that is a violent crime or something gets highlighted. The other 99% doesn't get highlighted. So if that's all people see, then they become afraid of it. It's just like the dog that bites in the community. Then do you say all dogs bite? You know, that's not necessarily, and I hear what you're saying. So, you know, just anything else you need to add to that. I've got a list of things we ain't gonna have time to talk about, but is there anything you need to add to that?
I think we just need to bring in our own particular experiences. So just imagine what your experiences are as a person and form your own thoughts about it. Don't go off what you read or what you're hearing. Go off your personal experiences.
Well, my experience has been hardworking, dedicated, family-oriented, strong-willed folks, and I think we need more and more of those as we can get them. The last thing I want you to touch on quickly is North Carolina Medicaid. Where do you see that going? That's a vital part of funding resources for your agency.
Yes, well, with Medicaid expansion, more people are eligible. So I would encourage everybody to apply. If you think you may be eligible due to the expansion, apply and let us see, because it's there to gain more people, to gain more applicants, to help more people. So I do think it's just going to get bigger.
And before a person that's listening today says, well, I don't no need for me to apply, they may need to apply because unless they have a real in-depth understanding of Medicaid, they may check all the blocks and not know that they're eligible for Medicaid.
Yeah, and I think that's a big population. I think there's a lot of those people. So I would encourage them to apply.
And what you just said, I think, would be also echoed by Sampson Regional Medical Center and others because they need that funding source also to keep their doors open.
Absolutely.
I want to take a moment. Thank you again for being here, sharing your vision, where we're headed. I was going to open the show with the vision of social services, but we're going to get back and stay in touch with you, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. Hope to see you again next week right here on We Should Know. And as we go to close, I always say, may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.